My boss invited me to his house for dinner. Now his wife is blackmailing me with photos I never took. I'm a 32-year-old woman, and I used to think my life was boring. You know the kind of life where every day feels the same? Wake up, grab a quick coffee, commute to work, sit through endless meetings, come home too tired to do anything except binge-watch shows or scroll mindlessly on my phone until I fall asleep next to my boyfriend. That was my life. Safe. Predictable. I worked as a project manager in a mid-sized tech company in Lyon. I wasn't the best at my job, but I wasn't bad either. I kept my head down, hit my targets, and never made waves. That's probably why it felt so out of place when my boss, Vincent, suddenly started paying more attention to me. Vincent is the kind of man you notice the moment he walks into a room. He's in his mid-40s, always wearing tailored suits that probably cost more than my monthly rent. He has this easy charm, always polite, always smooth, but you never really know what he's thinking. He could be planning your promotion or your downfall, you'd never see it coming. One afternoon, out of nowhere, he called me into his office. I remember I was actually nervous. I thought I must have screwed something up. But instead, he smiled, told me how impressed he was with my recent work, and casually invited me to his house for dinner the following Friday. A small, friendly dinner, he called it. Nothing formal. Just good wine, good food, and good company. At first, I hesitated. It felt strange. I barely knew him outside of work, but then he mentioned that he and his wife often hosted people from the office, that it was their way of keeping the team spirit alive. And to be honest, I didn't want to seem rude or ungrateful, especially after the promotion I'd just received. So I said yes. The night of the dinner, I remember standing in front of their house for a moment before ringing the bell. It was huge. Beautiful. The kind of modern mansion with glass walls and expensive art visible from the outside. Elise, his wife, opened the door. I'll never forget the way she looked at me. She was breathtaking. Long dark hair, piercing green eyes, wearing one of those simple yet expensive silk dresses that fall perfectly in place. She smiled, but it didn't feel warm. It felt practiced. Welcome. You must be Sophie, she said, taking my coat. I smiled nervously and stepped inside. The house was spotless, almost too perfect. Minimalist furniture, soft lighting, everything in its place. The kind of home where you feel like you shouldn't touch anything. The dinner started fine. We had wine, very expensive wine. Elise kept refilling my glass without even asking. Vincent told stories about the company, made me laugh, made me feel like I was part of some exclusive circle now. I felt flattered, if I'm being honest. I even texted Mark, my boyfriend, that everything was going great. But somewhere along the way, things get blurry in my mind. I remember the clinking of glasses. Laughter. Elise brushing her hand against mine when she poured more wine. Vincent saying something about how trust was everything in business. And then, darkness. I don't remember leaving. I don't remember getting home. I woke up the next morning in my own bed. My head was pounding like I had the worst hangover of my life. I was fully dressed. My phone was on the nightstand. There were no missed calls, no strange messages. At first, I thought I must have blacked out from drinking too much. I felt ashamed. Embarrassed. I kept replaying the evening in my head, but no matter how hard I tried, there was just nothing. I convinced myself it was fine. That I'd been stupid but nothing bad had happened. I told Mark I was just exhausted. I dragged myself through the weekend. By Monday, I was back at work, and for a moment, it felt like life was back to normal. I had no idea how wrong I was. I had no idea that night would come back to destroy everything I thought I knew about myself, my job, my relationship, everything. I tried to brush it off. For the next couple of days, I went back to my routine. Work, home, sleep. But something didn't sit right in my stomach. Every time I caught Vincent's eye at the office, I felt this strange discomfort, like he knew something I didn't. Like we shared a secret I couldn't even remember. I told myself I was being paranoid. That I'd just gotten too drunk. But then the email arrived. It was a Wednesday. Late afternoon. I was still at my desk when the notification popped up on my screen. No subject. No message. Just an attachment, a zip folder labeled dinner. My hands went ice cold. My first instinct was to delete it without opening. But curiosity, or maybe fear, got the better of me. I closed my office door, double-checked that no one could see my screen, and clicked. There were photos. At least a dozen. Photos of me. In their house. I felt my stomach twist as the images loaded. At first, they didn't seem too bad. One of me sitting on their sofa, glass in hand, laughing. Another of me at the dining table, mid-conversation. But then. The next ones. Me slumped on the couch, eyes half closed, dress slightly pulled up. Me, seemingly unconscious, one strap of my dress fallen off my shoulder. Another where I was fully unconscious, my head rolled back, my legs in a position I couldn't explain. I looked, drugged. I wanted to vomit. My heart was beating so fast I thought I might pass out right there at my desk. And then I noticed something even worse. In some of the pictures, Vincent's hand is on my leg. Elise is sitting next to me, smiling, almost posing for the camera like it was some twisted photo shoot. I couldn't breathe. I slammed my laptop shut and locked myself in the office bathroom. I sat on the toilet lid, shaking uncontrollably. My mind was racing. Was this real? Were these photos edited? Could this have really happened? The worst part? I had no memory of it. None. I thought of calling Mark. I thought of calling the police. But how do you report something you don't even fully understand yourself? How do you say, I think something happened but I don't remember? I tried to tell myself maybe it was just a prank. A sick, twisted prank. Maybe they'd come forward and say it was all a joke. But deep down, I knew. And the confirmation came that same evening. Another email, this time, no pictures. Just words, don't worry. No one else has seen the photos. We just need a small favor from you. Something quick. Something easy. Do it, and this all stays between us. The email was signed, Elise. At that moment, I knew I was trapped. I was shaking so hard I could barely type. I asked who else had these photos. What favor they were talking about. I begged them to delete everything. Their reply was cold, almost friendly, just a small transaction. Nothing you can't handle. No one has to get hurt. I felt like my world was spinning. I couldn't tell Mark. I couldn't tell anyone. I felt dirty. Ashamed. Even though I didn't remember anything, I felt like I had done something wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I kept replaying those photos in my mind. The emptiness in my own eyes. The way Elise looked so calm next to me. The next morning, another email. This time with precise instructions. They wanted me to approve a payment. An internal invoice for €38,700. Fake vendor. Fake services. All I had to do was click approve. That's it. And if I didn't? They'd share the memories with the rest of the company. Or worse, online. I sat there in front of my computer for hours, paralyzed. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my coffee. Every time someone walked past my desk, I jumped. I kept imagining the pictures being sent to my boss's assistant, to the company Slack, to Mark. I felt trapped inside my own skin. By the end of the day, I still hadn't done anything. I kept thinking, maybe they were bluffing. Maybe this was just psychological. Maybe the photos weren't even real. But deep down, I knew. I knew I had been drugged. I knew they had done something to me, and I knew they could ruin my life with a single click. I felt like I was drowning. And I had no idea how to save myself. I don't even know how I made it through that week. I was barely functioning. I went to work like a robot, nodding through meetings, typing reports I barely read. Every time I got an email notification, I felt physically sick. My heart would hammer in my chest so hard I thought people around me could hear it. I started avoiding Mark completely. He kept asking me if something was wrong. He could feel the distance, the coldness, but I couldn't bring myself to tell him. How do you tell the man you love that you might have been assaulted, that you're being blackmailed with photos you don't even remember being in? I couldn't even say the words out loud to myself. The emails from Elise kept coming. Always polite. Always calm. She wrote like we were old friends sharing a little secret. Just a little click, Sophie. You're the only one who can help us with this. After that, we'll disappear, promise. I don't know why I didn't go to the police immediately. I guess part of me was terrified no one would believe me. The photos looked real. There was nothing to prove I hadn't willingly taken part. And in this world, the doubt always falls on the woman. Always. By Friday, I was a wreck. I hadn't slept properly in days. I looked like a ghost. That morning, another email arrived. Just 3 words, time's running out. I panicked. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type. I went into the system. I found the invoice they had created. Everything looked legitimate, fake company, fake contract, but on the surface, it passed every check. I sat there staring at the approve button for what felt like hours. My mouth was dry. I felt cold sweat dripping down my back. And then, I clicked. I approved it. Just like that. Just one click. I felt like I'd sold my soul. I locked myself in the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left inside me. I kept thinking of Mark. Of my parents. Of how I'd always prided myself on being ethical, honest, clean. And here I was, caught in something so dark I could barely breathe. But the worst part, the absolute worst, was the relief I felt afterward. I actually believed for a moment that it was over. That I could go back to my life, that Elise and Vincent would disappear like they'd promised. For the next 2 weeks, they did. No emails. No messages. Nothing. I started to feel normal again. I even tried to reconnect with Mark, telling him I'd just been burned out from work. I wasn't fine, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I was functioning. Until the second email came. It was a Saturday. We were having brunch with friends. My phone buzzed. One glance at the sender, Elise, and my entire body froze. I excused myself, rushed to the bathroom, and opened it. This time there were new photos. Worse ones. I didn't even recognize myself in them. There were angles that made me want to rip my skin off. Positions I didn't remember, faces I didn't recognize. And the message was shorter this time, another favor. Double the amount. We're counting on you. I felt the room spin. My legs gave out. I slid down the bathroom wall and just sat there, crying silently, shaking uncontrollably. It hit me like a ton of bricks, they were never going to stop. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was a game. A system. A trap. I was the mouse, and they were just toying with me until they decided to end it for good. I don't know how long I sat there on the bathroom floor, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear myself think. My hands were shaking so violently that I dropped my phone twice just trying to lock the screen. I was gasping for air like I was drowning, because in a way, I was. They had me. Completely. I was too scared to tell Mark. Too scared to tell anyone. And as disgusting as it sounds, a part of me still thought maybe I could make this go away quietly. I could just comply. Get through this. Pretend it never happened. But the second favor they were asking for, it wasn't just bigger, it was bolder. They wanted me to approve another fake invoice, this time for over 80,000 euros. And the way they phrased it made my blood run cold. Do it by Monday, Sophie. Or everyone sees the photos. Even Mark. Even your parents. I felt sick. The entire weekend, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every time Mark touched me, even just to hold my hand, I flinched without meaning to. He kept asking what was wrong, his eyes so full of concern it made me want to scream. I wanted to tell him. God, I wanted to tell him so badly, but every time I pictured his face seeing those photos, those horrible images of me, unconscious, exposed, I froze. I felt contaminated. I even thought, for a split second, of disappearing. Just packing a bag, leaving everything behind, starting fresh somewhere far away. But I knew they'd find me. They were too organized. Too calm. This wasn't impulsive. This was methodical. By Sunday night, I broke down. I called my best friend, Sarah. She's the only person I trust in this world besides Mark. We've been friends since university, she knows me better than anyone. At first, I couldn't even get the words out. I was sobbing so hard she thought someone had died. When I finally told her everything, there was this horrible silence on the line. I thought maybe she didn't believe me. That maybe she thought I was insane. But then she whispered, "Jesus Christ. Sophie, this is serious. This is organized crime. You can't handle this alone." Her voice snapped me out of the spiral. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't completely alone. Sarah made me promise not to do anything until we'd looked deeper. She said she'd help me, that we'd figure this out together. We spent that night on her laptop, digging. We looked up Vincent's past. Elisa's social media. Company records. Old LinkedIn profiles. Anything we could find. And slowly, patterns started to emerge. There were women, former employees, who had suddenly left the company without explanation. Some of them had deactivated all their social media. Others had cryptic posts right before vanishing. No official complaints. No lawsuits. Just silence. The realization hit me like ice water. I wasn't the first. I wasn't even special. I was just another name on a list, and I knew, with a sick certainty in my stomach, that if I didn't find a way out, I'd either be ruined, or worse, next to disappear. I barely slept that night. Even with Sarah's support, even with her promising we'd figure something out, I felt like I was suffocating inside my own skin. The more we dug, the darker it got. We found at least 5 women, different positions, different years, who all shared one thing in common: they left the company suddenly, without explanation. Some right after promotions. Some after high-profile projects. Gone. Just like that. Sarah kept saying, "There's a pattern here. This isn't random. They've done this before. You need to fight back." But how? How do you fight something you can't even prove? The photos were real. The memory loss was real. The blackmail was real. But there was no physical evidence of the drug, no witnesses, no recording. It was just me against them. And now they wanted 80,000 euros. Monday morning came too fast. I sat at my desk staring at the fake invoice in the system, my fingers hovering over the keys. My head was spinning. Every scenario played out in my mind. I say no, they ruin me. I say yes, I become complicit in fraud. My hands were sweating. I kept looking around the open space, seeing my coworkers chatting, sipping coffee, unaware that my entire world was caving in. And then, without thinking, almost mechanically, I clicked approve. Again. I felt like I was floating outside my own body. As soon as it was done, I ran to the restroom and threw up. My reflection in the mirror didn't look like me. I had dark circles, hollow cheeks, lifeless eyes. I barely recognized the woman staring back. Sarah called me that evening, angry, no, terrified. She begged me to stop giving in. She told me I had to draw a line or they'd bleed me dry. She even suggested going to the police together. But I wasn't ready. I was too scared. Too broken. And then something unexpected happened. On Wednesday, the company announced that Vincent, my boss, had officially resigned. Effective immediately. No details. Just a cold internal email stating that he'd left for personal reasons. The news spread like wildfire. People were stunned. He was high up, respected, practically untouchable. And suddenly, gone. I didn't know what to think. Relief? Fear? Confusion? I half hoped that maybe it was over. That maybe they were done with me. I even told Sarah, cautiously, that maybe the nightmare was ending. But deep down, I knew better. When something seems too sudden, too easy, there's always a catch. That catch arrived the very next day. A small, white envelope slid under the door of my apartment. No stamp. No handwriting. Inside, just a single USB stick. And I knew. Before I even touched it, I knew. I was still trapped. Worse than before. I can't even describe the feeling I had when I held that USB stick in my hands. My fingers were ice cold, my whole body shaking. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears like a drum, louder than my own breath. For a long time, I just stood there in the hallway, staring at the envelope, unable to move. Part of me wanted to throw it in the trash, smash it, burn it, anything but look. But I knew that wasn't an option. Not really. I waited until Mark left for the gym. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely get the USB into my laptop. My palms were sweaty. My stomach was in knots. I clicked. There were dozens of files. Not just photos, videos. Short clips, each one labeled with a woman's name. Different women. Different dates. And then I saw mine. Sophie_24.05.mp4, I don't know why, but I clicked. The video was silent. Shaky at first. It showed me, my body, limp on their pristine white sofa. My dress pulled halfway up my thighs, my head slumped to the side. Vincent's hand on my knee. Elise smiling at the camera like she was posing for a goddamn Christmas card. I felt bile rise in my throat. My skin crawled. My whole body recoiled from the screen, but I couldn't stop watching. It was like watching someone else's life, except it was mine. And then, the horror deepened. Because there were others. Other women. Some unconscious. Some barely moving. Some, crying. Dozens of them. I closed the laptop so violently I thought I'd snap it in half. I fell to the floor, sobbing, choking on air. My whole body was shaking. My mind was spinning. I wanted to claw my own skin off. This wasn't just about me. This wasn't an isolated nightmare. It was systematic. It was a game they'd played over and over. And I realized, with terrifying clarity, Vincent hadn't resigned. He'd been removed. Someone higher up must have known something, enough to make him disappear overnight. But not enough to bring the truth to light. Or worse, maybe they did know. And they were covering it up. That night, I couldn't face Mark. I couldn't even look at him without feeling like I was made of glass, thin, cracked, seconds from shattering. Sarah kept calling. I couldn't answer. All I could think about was those other women. Their faces. Their lifeless bodies. The sheer horror of how many of us there were. And how many more there might still be. I felt trapped in my own skin. I didn't sleep. I just lay there in the dark, listening to Mark breathe softly beside me, my heart racing, my hands trembling under the covers. And in the silence, the thought kept circling, over and over, until it felt like it would swallow me whole. I wasn't safe. I would never be safe. I didn't leave the apartment for 2 days after that. I barely ate, barely moved. Mark kept asking what was wrong, but I couldn't find the words. Every time I tried, my throat tightened until I physically couldn't speak. I was living inside a nightmare that didn't even feel real anymore. I kept seeing those videos in my head. The blank faces of women I didn't know, caught in the same horror I was living. I wanted to scream. To rip my skin off. To disappear. Sarah came over the next night. I hadn't even told her about the USB yet. When I finally showed her, she gasped so loud I thought the neighbors would hear. She pressed her hand over her mouth, tears in her eyes. "Oh my God. Sophie, this is bigger than you," she whispered. I knew she was right. But I couldn't see a way out. Sarah begged me to go to the police. She offered to come with me, to help me build a case. But the thought of those videos getting out, of them being shown, replayed, picked apart, I felt like I was drowning in shame. I told her I needed time. That I couldn't do it. Not yet. The next morning, everything shifted. An internal email went out to the entire company. It was cold, sterile. Vincent had officially severed all ties with the firm. No mention of why. No thank you, no farewell. Just gone. Rumors were flying. People were whispering in the hallways. Some said he'd been caught embezzling. Others whispered about an affair. No one knew the truth. But I knew. And then something I didn't expect happened. Elise vanished. Her Instagram deleted. Her Facebook wiped. Gone. I felt a sick sort of hope. Maybe they were really disappearing. Maybe I was free. For the first time in weeks, I let myself breathe. I sat on the balcony with Sarah, watching the city lights, daring to imagine that maybe, just maybe, it was over. I even smiled for the first time. I thought about telling Mark the truth, coming clean now that the danger had passed. But hope is dangerous. And I should have known better. Because the very next morning, another envelope slid under my door. No USB this time. Just a single printed photo. A photo of me. From the dinner. But this time I wasn't unconscious. I was laughing. Smiling. Wine glass in hand. A normal moment. And scribbled in red marker across the top were 3 words, "See you soon." My hands went numb. I dropped the photo like it burned me. My vision blurred. My knees buckled. They weren't gone. They weren't finished. And whatever came next, I had no idea how to survive it. I don't even remember how long I sat on the floor after finding that photo. It felt like time had frozen around me. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely hold my phone when I tried to call Sarah. I don't know how she understood a word I was saying between the panic and the tears, but she came over immediately. I showed her the photo. She paled. Neither of us spoke for a while. We just sat there in silence, both of us realizing the same terrifying truth: this wasn't over. It was never going to be over. Sarah was the one who finally spoke. "Sophie, you have to leave." It sounded insane. But the more we talked, the clearer it became. The police couldn't help me, not without those videos being dragged into the light, and I couldn't bear that. Even if they were caught, the damage to my life, to my relationship, to my sanity, it would be permanent. And worst of all, what if these people had connections? What if justice wouldn't even touch them? I spent the next few days in a daze, operating on pure survival instinct. I emptied my bank account. I deleted my social media. I told Mark I needed space, that I was having a mental breakdown, technically not a lie. I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. I couldn't stand the thought of him seeing me like that, of him watching those videos, those photos. I packed everything I could into 2 suitcases. Sarah helped me find a temporary rental in another city, under a different name. I don't even know what story she gave to people at work. I just vanished. I thought the hardest part would be leaving Mark. But the hardest part is living with the knowledge. The knowledge that I will never really be free. That somewhere, in some encrypted folder, those images of me exist. That these people, Vincent, Elise, whoever else was involved, could reappear at any moment. And the worst part? I still don't remember that night. My own memory has become my prison. I'm not okay. I'm not even close to okay. I wake up sweating from nightmares. Every time I hear a knock at the door, my heart races. I check every email like it's a loaded gun. I haven't spoken to Mark again. I miss him so much it physically hurts, but I know I can't go back. I can't risk dragging him into this. I don't even know who I am anymore. Sometimes I wonder if I should have gone to the police, if I should have burned everything down no matter the cost. But then I remember those other women, the ones who disappeared, who stayed silent. And I wonder, did they make it out? Are they still living in hiding like me? Or did something worse happen to them? I don't know how to move on from this. I don't know if I ever will. Right now, I just survive. That's all I can do. And honestly, I don't know what to do anymore.
Follow me for more stories.